Now take a little time out and come along with the Pet Detectives on their endless adventures that will take our brave team just down the block and around the world, from finding lost pets and loved ones to solving mysteries where others have failed. And all you need to bring is your imagination and your sense of humor. Episode 4, The Sick Racehorse. In our last episode, the Pet Detectives were able to return Bocephus, the prize-winning bull, back safely into his mother's hooves. Now they were off to Southern California to investigate a racehorse mystery. The team, made up of Pepe, the ill-mannered Chihuahua, Charlie, the French Brittany Spaniel, Bailey, the beautiful Siamese cat with her ever-present pearl necklace, Samuel and Isaac, the twin red foxes that can only be told apart by Isaac's black-rimmed glasses, Colonel, the little Chiweenier dog, Ruger, the big bird dog with an even bigger bark, Polly Opossum the possum, and the little country boy named Thomas. Now they arrived at the racehorse track called the Stick Horse Racetrack. Yes, it's not much of a name, but the racetrack was built on the grounds of the factory where they used to make stick horses, and they already had a big road sign up, so history was made. Oh, now where's little Thomas and Ruger, you ask? Well, now Thomas and Ruger finally finished helping his mother on her cleanup project that was inside and outside the house, and according to Thomas, about half of Fresno too. Now once they passed his mom's inspection, he and Ruger finished up fixing and painting their used canoe. They painted it yellow and then realized it looks just like a banana. So naturally they christened it the SS Chiquita, their own little banana boat. So they took it up to Shaver Lake in the Sierra Mountains, spent a few days together fishing, canoeing, and camping overnight. However, at night in the forest surrounding the lake and the campsite, Ruger and Thomas said they felt like they were being watched. But Ruger is a good protector and they were safe. Now back to the Stick Horse Racetrack. Our team met the horse's owner, Pumpkin Pete, and as soon as you seen Pumpkin Pete smile, you knew why they called him Pumpkin Pete. Now he said he had bought a horse named Battleship in an auction, and as reported, he was very fast. The problem is, every time he races, he gets dizzy and loses his balance, and he can hardly finish the race. Now the Pet Detective team quickly came up with a plan. First, they tested all the food and water to make sure it was safe and healthy. Pumpkin Pete said he had a vet look at Battleship, and the vet gave Battleship a clean bill of health. Now before all this though, our team secretly sent Charlie, Samuel, and Isaac, the boys, down to the racetrack a week ahead of the rest. You see, Charlie and the boys are racehorse jockeys. Charlie worked at a racehorse track after school as a jockey, and Samuel and Isaac, well, they were also racehorse jockeys at an indoor racetrack in Saudi Arabia. Charlie and the boys got there and started riding in races and secretly investigated Battleship and the other horses. Since our team could talk to horses, they could make sure that they are all okay, and from their investigation, everything seemed to be fine, and the horses are well taken care of. When the rest of the team got there, it was Battleship's day to race, and Isaac was to be his jockey. Samuel was riding a chocolate-colored horse named Snickers, and Charlie was riding a horse named R.C. Cola, who was recovering from a leg injury. Charlie had instructions not to run R.C. Cola too fast, to just try and stay with the pack if he could. So one by one, the horses loaded up into the starting gates, each horse into the chute to start the race. Well, when it was R.C. Cola and Charlie's turn, they were the last ones to load up, and R.C. did not want to get into his stall, because the last time he got into the starting gate, that is how he hurt his leg, and he was very nervous about it. So Charlie had rubbed his neck with the back of his paw and told R.C. Cola very calmly not to worry, that he would make sure he wouldn't hurt himself today, and that R.C. was just going to have fun running with all of his friends. This comforted R.C. very much, and now he happily loaded up into the starting gate. and as soon as RC was in, the starting bell rang and they were off, and the race was on. Battleship jumped right to the lead, and Isaac was enjoying the speed and the power of Battleship. Samuel and Snickers were right behind him, with Charlie and RC were in the rest of the pack. When they reached the second and final turn, Isaac could sense that Battleship was having trouble. He started weaving back and forth and was getting dizzy and losing his balance. So Isaac slowed Battleship down, and Samuel and Snickers, they flew right on by. Then Charlie and RC caught up with Isaac and Battleship, running side by side. Charlie could also sense that Battleship was dizzy and starting to lose his balance. So Charlie reached over and grabbed Battleship's halter and helped him steady, and Battleship finished the race safely, as Samuel and Snickers won the race, which was a big deal because it was Snickers' first race. After a couple cool-down laps on the exercise track, Battleship was no longer weaving back and forth or dizzy. The very next day, Pumpkin Pete entered Battleship in another race, since he recovered so quickly. However, it rained all night and all day, and the track was very muddy, and some of the track looked like a fishing pond. The horses all in the starting gate, the bell rang, and the race had started. Isaac and Battleship once again jumped right to first place, racing through the mud and the water with no problem, while the other horses struggled with the wet and muddy conditions of the racetrack. This time, on the second turn, Battleship didn't get dizzy. He got faster and he got stronger, as he blasted across the finish line firmly in first place. Now, after Battleship's cool-down laps and back in his stall, Pumpkin Pete was smiling like, well, a pumpkin. Now, Pumpkin Pete always believed in Battleship, but even with all his work, he never could figure out why Battleship was getting sick when he races. I have had his food and water checked in the vet, and no luck, but today he runs great. Well, then Pepe chimed in, and he said, he's a mudder. Now that's a horse who runs well in the mud. Pepe continued, and I would bet he's a Mississippi mudder from the famous Yazoo, Mississippi mud track. Why, I was there one time and it was so muddy that the horses all had on rubber boots and floaties. Now, some of the horses that were born there have webbed feet and feathers. Now, Pepe does have a reputation for slightly over-explaining the details and the facts, but Pepe might have been on to something. But Pepe got off track again, and he said the cure is a name change, and I think we should change his name to Pollywog, and it would solve all the problems. Case closed, write me a check there, Pumpkin Soup. It's Pumpkin Pete. Now, once again, Pepe found a way to offend and embarrass his customers and his team all in the same sentence. What did I say? Now, during Pepe's long-winded story, Bailey and Colonel asked Pumpkin Pete where did he buy Battleship at. Pumpkin Pete said in New Orleans, Louisiana, at a Navy auction. The Navy? Now, Colonel and Bailey found this very curious. Colonel had connections in the Navy. Colonel's uncle, General Gustav Beauregard, who once famously was the first Chewiener dog to reach the South Pole all on his own. Now, Colonel was General Gustav's favorite nephew and was more than happy to help out. Colonel asked the general if he could find out about the auction in New Orleans and Battleship's history. As luck would have it, the good general is currently stationed at the naval base in New Orleans. And the general told Colonel that he would get right on it and expect an email from the general's office in 2 hours. And when General Gustav said 2 hours, he means exactly 2 hours. True to his word, the email came in exactly 2 hours later. The email said, Battleship was born on the ship SS Abraham Lincoln, and his real name is Abraham. He lived all of his life on board the SS Abraham Lincoln and was used in parades for the Navy in different parts of the world. And also, Battleship never lived on dry land until he was in the Navy auction in New Orleans, and his health is perfect. Now, the boys, Samuel and Isaac, have been around horses all their lives, and they have a real understanding of horses. Isaac said, I think Pepe is right in that Battleship is not seasick, but he's land sick, being on land opposite for him. Isaac said, I have an idea. Isaac called his eye doctor and ordered a special pair of horse goggles that were halfway filled with water. Now, when the water goggles were put on Battleship, it was like he was back standing on the deck of the SS Abraham Lincoln, looking out over the waves on the deep blue ocean. The eye doctor even put a little goldfish in the goggles that Battleship befriended quickly and named him Little Lincoln. Now the next day the track was dry and dusty, but Battleship has his water goggles with Little Lincoln inside, Isaac riding him, Samuel riding Snickers, Charlie was riding R.C. Cola, all loaded up in the starting gates, and R.C. Cola was over his fear and easily loaded into the starting gate. The other horses giggled a little bit at Battleship in his water goggles with his little goldfish Lincoln inside of him. But they wouldn't giggle for long. The starting bell rang, the gates opened, and they were off to the races. Once again, Isaac and Battleship jumped right to the front, with Samuel and Snickers right behind them, along with Charlie and R.C. Cola right in the middle of the pack. Now Isaac could feel Battleship was much stronger and his balance was great, and Little Lincoln was cheering his new best friend Battleship on. As they came around the second and final turn, Isaac just tucked in and let Battleship run, and run he did. Winning the race with Samuel and Snickers in second, and Charlie and R.C. Cola a very close third place. Now with Battleship back in his stall, and Little Lincoln in his aquarium in Battleship's stall that the pet detectives bought for him, so Little Lincoln would have his own little place that he could exercise and be ready for Battleship's races. Now with the land sickness cured and Battleship's history discovered, Pumpkin Pete was thrilled because he really does love his horse, and he really was worried about him. So he thanked the team, even Pepe for the record, and paid them for their services. Now with all this horse racing just made our team homesick and wanting to get back home and ride and play with their ponies, Rosie and Blaze. When the team called Polly Opossum back at the office/feed store, Polly Opossum said, "He better get back here quickly. They just received a phone call and a new case came in and it's urgent." So tune in next time as the adventures of the Pet Detectives continue on. Now Charlie asked you to hit the like and subscription buttons and ring that notification bell, and Little Colonel, well, he asked you to leave a comment and let Little Colonel know where you think this next urgent case is taking them. Anything this urgent is worth sharing also, and sharing it with your friends. And we'll see you next time on the adventures of the Pet Detectives.